Thank you all for coming. I am a co-president with Christine Eichner, and she could not be here because she's in an art show, imagine that, in Chicago this weekend. But thank you all for coming. The Madison Art Guild was established in 1914, and is one of the oldest organizations for arts in the state of Wisconsin. The Salon is always an exciting exhibit for our members as it gives the highest honors to our members. We are here to celebrate that tonight. We do want to thank UW Hospital for hosting us for many years and Mandy for her hard work. And of course, we want to give a huge thank you to Colette Gerard for organizing and her committee. She has been working diligently. It is an enormous undertaking, and we do love the fact that she has stepped up to the plate and taken charge of this event. I also want to thank our judge this year, who is Cynthia Quinn. This is also a lot of work for someone to judge 93 pieces of art, and required a couple of trips back here this year. So we are honored that she chose to work with us and jury our show. Back to me.
Okay, it's me again. One thing we're gonna do when you walked in, can you hear me? Can you hear me? When you walked in and you checked in, you may have filled out a little piece of paper and entered your name. What that name is for is to participate in the Amoca Winter Indoor Show, and that happens in November, and 5 people participate. So we're gonna choose 5 names, and then we're gonna have 3 backup names for those who might not wish to participate or they're unable to participate. Does anyone want to make a late entry?
Yeah.
I'll make one for you.
Okay. I didn't see one. Are there any other late entries that didn't see the sign-in? Yeah. No, this was just write my name. Just keep it blank. Just write my name. Yeah, we'll leave it blank. Okay. Thank you.
I had to turn the mic back on. Okay, here we go. It's exciting stuff. The first name is Nancy Mather. Nancy? Yay, there she is. Number 2 is Tom Kuchenbecker. But Tom, he participated last year. You're not eligible, I'm sorry. It was still exciting though, wasn't it, Tom? Hannah Wong. Hannah? Yay! Karen Nell McKean. Karen? There she is. Julie Schneider. There she is.
This is number 5. This is number 5.
Rob IGC. Is that short for your name? Rob? Igo. I'm sorry. Okay. So that was 5. We're going to look for...
Rob was an art fair on the square.
Oh, are you?
Yeah, this year. Yeah, he's not on.
Oh.
Oh, okay.
Thank goodness someone knows the rules. Okay. Oh. Teresa. You are the 5th person. So now the next are going to be our backups, which looks like just one person, and that's Charmaine. You're our backup. Okay. All right, thanks, everyone. Comes the helicopter. And we're going to let the med flight land. Okay, I think we're pretty close. My name is Pam Andros. I've been with Madison Art Guild since I believe my children were 2. I say they because they're twins. And now they're 19. So I've been doing this quite a bit, and as a relatively busy person with those twins, and then I added a couple more later, and I work full time, that sometimes, or most of the time, art was a little pushed to the side, but this salon made sure that I made at least one thing every year. And it also kept this thing alive that was important. I got to meet all kinds of other artists in town and get that support that we like from each other. So that's been important to me. And then also, during the show, while we were setting up, a gentleman was walking through, and he shared with Mandy just the fact that he saw so many people coming through, as he's been here quite a bit, visiting a friend, and how they really enjoy looking at the art. And they spend a lot of time, and they discuss it, and really how valuable it is here for the people who visit the hospital. And so art's important to me and all of you members, but also it's a good reminder that it's a powerful thing that's important to other people too. And it's a special thing to have it here in the hospital, I think. So without further ado, I first want to, before I introduce our judge, I'm going to read a little bit about Cynthia. She holds an AD degree with high honors in graphic design from Madison College. For the past 20 years, she has taught both credit and non-credit courses in art and design. She has professionally painted and exhibited in watercolor and oils since 1990. Cynthia is a signature member of the Transparent Watercolor Society of America. So I would like to welcome Cynthia. Here she is. And again, thank you for your time. This is always fun, but also I know a challenge sometimes for our judges.
Hello, everybody. I'm glad to see so many of you are here. I've been a judge a number of times, and I always try to take it really seriously because as a working artist my entire life, not having acknowledgement or appreciation or any kind of real thought put into looking at work always seems to me to be a big opportunity lost. And so I try to view it from the point of view of my own career and how seriously I take what I do and how important it is to me to do well. And I can tell from looking at your exhibit that everyone in here has that same mindset. You're all very serious about what you're doing, and I applaud all of you for what you do. Before the awards are announced, I wanted to just very briefly talk about the types of things that I look at in art that I feel kind of rises above the average. And then when the awards are handed out, I will try to mention something from this list that maybe pertains to each person's reason for the award. So, several things that I look for in art that stands out. One would be to tell a story. Having a narrative aspect to the art that makes you wonder what's going on with that person and why they chose to do what they do and how they choose to do it is always really intriguing. And so when I was looking at the art, when I saw pieces that really made me question what was going on with the artist or why they chose to do what they did, I wished they'd been there so I could ask them. So that draws you in right away. The why. Why are you doing this? The second thing I wanted to mention was composition, which is something that I think a lot of people kind of bypass in their excitement to get going on their piece and want to dive right in without really thinking about how the elements that are placed
where they are and their relationships to each other, and all the wonderful things you can do in selection before you begin a piece of art might not have been really thought about. And I highly recommend a book called Mastering Composition by Ian Roberts. If you're someone who wants to bone up on composition choices and get excited about the pre-work that you're going to do, that is an excellent book. In terms of color, think outside the local color box. There's a lot of work that can be created that looks very literally like what the person is observing. But I like to see when people get a little bit more experimental with it and try to do something with color schemes that help strengthen the content of their imagery. Craft, which I would call your skills with your media, are things pertaining to being a very competent user of that media, no matter what it is. And also trying to create ways to use it in a way that might be very distinctively your thing, which isn't an easy thing to figure out, but as you work with something over time, you might come up with an idea that you haven't seen other people doing, and I say that's a really great avenue to pursue. Edges. In painting particularly, hard edges tend to draw the focus of the viewer's eye. And I love it when people use soft and hard edges as a way of making a person look from one area to another area, or to make a focal point stand out more because the hard edges are located with that object. Take a chance. Ask yourself, what if I ... and do it. Don't always think you have to follow some kind of rule or a teacher's advice or any of that. I think that's how you find your voice. And so if you're thinking along the lines of experimenting, open yourself up to that. And by doing that, you're going to probably fail. I certainly have many times. But I think failure is a big way to learn. And so whenever I've had a terrible result happen by something I just sort of took a chance on, I try to pat myself on the back and say, what did I learn? Which could be a lot. And by being afraid not to go for it, you sometimes never learn what you could have. The last thing I wanted to say is to be an explorer and put yourself in the position to receive. And that just requires opening yourself up to all sorts of possibilities out there, critiquing with friends, cruising the internet, looking at art, going to museums, working in sketchbooks and creating concepts, experimenting in sketchbooks. It's a lot less pressure than when you've got a great big panel and you're out there painting away on it. So being an explorer throughout your artistic career, I think, will help you be happy and continue to develop. And then the very last thing, Elizabeth Gilbert wrote a book called Big Magic. Anybody read it? A few of you. I have to say that she describes the creative process in an unbelievably interesting way, with lots of examples of how artists are creative, and I highly recommend it if you are curious about thinking about the process of creativity and how people access it. And she doesn't just talk about art, she talks about poetry and all sorts of other things related. So it can really open up your mind to a lot of information about creativity. So I hope that didn't go too long, but the things that I mentioned, I will mention as the awards are given out, where I saw certain things that I thought fit within the parameters of what I consider to be art that has reached a very good level. And if you didn't get an award, it doesn't mean I didn't like your work. I was very impressed overall with the show, but you know, I had to use some judge of some factors, and so that's how it is.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for that. It's always, I always enjoy hearing, you know, from the judge's perspective, looking at so much work, how you approach it. And that's really helpful. It's like very useful critique, at least for me, so thank you. So I'm going to step in here because my little cheat sheet is in here. Oh, you know what? In my fury to make a little piece of paper, I got it a little bit. But I'm good, I got it. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna start by the individual categories by media. So we're gonna start with media, and the first is in the fiber, sculpture, mixed media, and collage. And I'm gonna start with the second place, which goes to Ruth Manning.
Ruth, I wanted to say that I found your work very fresh and spontaneous. And
She is. That's me.
I was very happy to see someone working with a sketchbook and on location style, because I think it's excellent practice. And so,
Thank you.
that's
Thank you.
All right, very good. It's excellent practice, and it's also really fun. So if you'd like to join in to Madison Urban Sketchers, check it out. So in our first place in the category is Sally Probasco.
Sally's work I am familiar with. I've seen her exhibiting around the area, and in some cases at the same place as myself. And what I really like about your work is the interesting surface texture you get with your collaged papers and the use of watercolor. Using the media in a way that's a little different from the average. And as far as composition goes, you had sort of a radial composition with the chicken heads all kind of pointing in toward an area on your painting that happened to be one of the high points for the golden rectangle. You were in a quadrant that is sort of a gold quadrant. So I don't know if that was intentional, but it worked really well.
All right. Composition is important, even if it's innate, right? So our next category is jewelry, metals, and art glass, and our second place winner is Charmaine Harbord. Thank you.
Your piece had this mixed materials. I've seen polymer work before, which I really like, but I like that you mixed the quartz and the silver and then your own handmade patterns together with it. And I thought it was very playful.
So our first place winner in this category is Martha Fitzmer. Martha?
I was looking at your olive oil container and absolutely loving the contemporary aspects of it. Most of us use our olive oil containers in a kind of traditional shape, and yours was quite a departure from that. And it had a very modernist look, and there was webbing on the sides. Was there, what was your sort of initial choices? I mean, how did you come to what you did?
I really started with Hinge, which is a hidden hinge it's called.
Oh. You need to pass the mic.
If you look at my piece, I started with a hinge on the top, and it's called a hidden hinge, and all those knuckles sort of have to go together. And then I wanted to get a design on that webbing on the outside that went with it, but I didn't want it to be the squares. I wanted to be a surprise kind of with the elements. So, and then it just sort of evolved from there.
All right. Excellent. Thank you. So our next category is drawing, pastels, and printmaking. And our second place winner in this category is Wendy Chrome.
Hi, Wendy. I was impressed with your very confident use of the pastel medium. I'm familiar with it because my husband, John Ribble, was a pastel artist, and so I'm pretty up on what he goes through to do it. And I like the variety of marks you made with your pastel. And when I looked at the painting, because I took pictures of everything and then looked at it a number of times, there was a very strong use of 3 values, which I think in landscape work is a really good way to go. And so your shadow shapes and then your midtones and lights worked really well. So.
So our first place winner in this category is Heather Maxwell. Heather?
Heather, I'm a big fan of birds. But that's not the only reason that I was attracted to your work. I liked the fact that you were using pen and ink, and I love pen and ink myself. And the mandala shape that you chose to put around the bird made me feel as if this was being presented as a meditation. And then the drawings of all the companion plants that a hummingbird thrives off of were a real interesting composition to express something about the bird itself. So it was very unusual, and it just caught my eye.
Thank you.
So our next category is photography. And the second place winner in this category is Donald Sylvester.
You got your camera.
It's ready to go. Well, speaking of meditation, which is the name of your piece, I was really taken with the tranquility that sort of came right out at me while I was looking at it. And I felt that the simple shapes and the sort of soft palette really plugged into what I think you were wanting to communicate. And then I started noticing all the vertical lines that were repeating themselves in the shadows and making kind of a pattern that could almost be viewed like notes on a musical score. I didn't have any music in my head, but that repetition of vertical lines just sort of plugged right into the meditative feeling. And so that's what I was responding to.
Thank you.
So our first place winner in the photography category is Ken Halfman. Ken?
Well, I was really taken with that landscape you did. And it just had a real powerful focus to it. And what started to occur to me was the fact that it was a bit of a reversal in your attention being drawn to land and then the sky is the accessory. And in this photograph, I felt like the sky was the focal point and the land below was an accessory. Does it? Okay. Well, I think it worked really well.
Our next category is watercolor, and I know I'm not good at watercolor, so I really appreciate the people who are. So our second place winner in this category is Tom Hookenbecker. Tom.
Sunset Skywards, which is a beautiful painting. Do you work plein air much, or do you work in a studio?
Studio for photographs.
Okay. Well, I felt like the way you used the paint and the colors and the muted aspects of the colors set a really beautiful twilight mood to the piece. And the relationship between land and sky was just really great. It was almost like the land and the sky were just two units. And I wasn't paying attention to the architecture of the building, but caught up in the mood of what you created.
Okay, so our first place winner, unfortunately, is out of town, but that's Deborah Gleason. It's always fun to go back and take a look after we do this thing with art. So our next category is acrylics, and our second place winner in that category is Yongjin Lee. Are you here?
I was taken by your style of painting and representing what appeared to be a village, perhaps.
Yeah.
You're familiar with, perhaps?
Yeah, something I like.
Yes.
It's the water.
Mm-hmm. The composition was very fun to look at with fishermen and all the little town buildings, and I was surprised when I looked at the label that it was done in acrylic. I thought, oh, this must be a watercolor.
Yeah.
But I liked the thin use of it with the washes, and So overall, it just was very charming.
Thank you so much.
Okay, our next category is in oils, and our second placed winner. Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped over our first place winner. I'm so sorry, I'm building up the tension by making a mistake. Okay, so our first place winner in the acrylics category is Catherine Ackbeck. Catherine, are you here? Hi.
Well, I loved your name of the piece, the tone poem.
It's always the hardest part.
Yeah. But it fit really well with the painting because to me there was this quiet stillness about what we were looking at with the deer. And the color choices you made were what I would call an analogous scheme. And that's where you use colors that are adjacent to each other on the color wheel. And they tend to, when you do that, create quite a mood that helps communicate the same mood in the actual painting. And so all the blues and greens, I really felt lent that stillness and that tranquility to emphasize what you were going for.
Now we're going to do oils. I'm back on track. So our second place winner is Donna Cutler-Landsman. Donna?
Hello. So I was looking at your beautiful bouquet, and I was really enjoying your use of texture in the paint and making it thick and kind of making the flowers feel almost dimensional. And also, you were doing a good job, I thought, of using edge control, where everything wasn't a hard edge in the painting, but the hard edges were on your bouquet and vase, which were the focal point, and then the background had soft edges and softer color. So it really pushed the vase forward. So
our first place winner in the oils category is Karen Nell McKean. Karen. Hello.
I really love the fact that I could not understand your painting. So I'm going to ask you for just a short little explanation.
I thought you might ask.
Say it into the mic.
Okay. I do match realism paintings. I've always been a representational painter, and I wanted to get into something more creative. And I do dream work, so images are coming from dreams. And kind of the thought behind it is about how human interaction with the earth can be a gestation of something really good, as opposed to some of the negative things that we think about.
Makes sense.
So,
I get it now.
thank you very much.
Well done. So next we're going to move on to the Judges Awards, but before I do that, I was remiss before, to thank the people who made this whole thing possible. We have a core set of people who organized the show, volunteered, even including sitting at the table when you all found out you had to repark because there was a crane and then, so, and all of that jazz, providing the lovely food and so forth. So I would just like to thank Nancy Donahue, Martha Fitzmer, Colette, of course, Gina Hawkins, Linda Marquardt, Nancy Mather, Anita Musa, Marcia Nelson, Mary Kay Payne, Laura Reed, Karen Watson-Newland, thank you Karen, and David Williams. So thank you all for that. So the next grouping, there's 3, first, second, and third place, and these are called the Judges Award. And our third place winner is Gina Hawkins.
Hi. The last 5 years I've been working quite a bit with textiles and have deviated a bit from my painting obsession. So I was really taken with the beautiful beadwork you did on your koi. And I was also really enjoying the fact that you made it a more three-dimensional piece, even though it was in a frame. As I work with textiles myself, I've been wanting and doing more and more three-dimensional aspects, and so you were very successful with your efforts there.
So our second place winner is Linda Marquardt. Linda. Hungry Spring.
Really caught my eye. When I looked at it, I was just really taken with the abundant energy that was being communicated. And also there was so much energy in the color, and the composition really felt like it was kind of exploding like growth does in the spring. And it also was whimsical. And I tend to always like it when there's something kind of amusing going on, if it fits the topic. So I responded to it on a number of levels.
So our first place winner, who couldn't be here tonight, is Jack Kloppenberg. So I just wanted to mention that. So our next category is the William and Margaret Schmidt Memorial Fund. Memorial Award. These are individuals who were members of MAG, certainly fans of them, and we named some awards in their honor. So they are bronze, silver, and gold, and our bronze winner is Daniel Bakken.
Daniel, your painting was also very eye-catching. I was responding to the tonalist feel of your land and trees in the background, and I'm a big fan of tonalist type work. And also the dynamic texture you had in your water, of the waterfall. And I thought you had a very sophisticated use of brushwork, which is yet another wonderful thing that painters can use to communicate things to the viewer. So overall, I thought it was quite strong.
Thank you.
So our silver goes to Annette Napstein.
I just fell in love with your photograph. I walked by it and I was just like knocked out. And I think the reason was the composition was just superb. The figures of the girls running and coming forward, and the fact that the lighting on them was very shape-making. You weren't looking at all the little aspects of the figures, but you were looking at the forms. And then that would cause you to look at the negative shapes around the forms, which was light. And so if you're photographing people, you might be tending to want to have it be the other way. But in this case, it was the opposite, and it just had a lot of power. So I congratulate you on that.
Our gold goes to Rob Iggle. Rob.
I was also very taken with your warbot. So I don't know a lot about metals, but I thought it was very well crafted, the way you put it together. And so out of my own curiosity, I just wanted to ask you what made you choose the elements? Were they things you found, or how did you go about making that idea come to life?
Most of the medium in there is recycled, repurposed materials. In each of those type of sculptures, there's one particular piece, and in this case, it happened to be the two pistons for his feet that got me going off the whole thing. That was my inspiration to start.
So our next award is called the Prey Grand Prize for Watercolor, and that goes to Teresa Drinka.
I loved the freedom and the flow of your painting. We were talking about edges a while ago. You were very much experimental with hard and soft, and there was a lot of loosely done watercolor. You had a limited palette of color, which I think also strengthened your design. I always am curious about people who can work in a more abstract way. And so just a brief question about how you decided to compose your painting.
You're not going to like this. I took a workshop last summer. Well, first I took one, and it was the best one I've ever taken. It was an abstract one. And the second one was also abstract. It was the worst workshop I've ever taken. To the point that the instructor started to attack me the minute I walked in the door. I didn't know this man. I mean, first, I must have reminded him of his ex-wife or something. I have no idea. But by the middle of the first day, I was so angry, I told him not to come near me. And I literally turned my back and painted. No. I painted 7 paintings in 3 days, big ones. And I realized how motivated I am by anger, which really scared me. So that painting, this one, Trump took one step too far. And so I went down to my workshop and I just blew it off. So that, and then there really was no planning, it came right from the inside.
Sometimes anger is very good. Well done. You channeled it into something really, it's beautiful. So now comes Best in Show, and that goes to Karen Watson-Newland, standing here, so you can give that to yourself. Congratulations.
I didn't realize it was you over there. Well, it's difficult, you know, when you're looking at all this beautiful work to try to figure out what's the best. But to me, I really felt when I looked at your painting like I was in it. I felt like I was in the bush with the birds. there was just a quality of movement to the branches that made me feel the wind. And a keen observer of birds, I know they love their little thickets to be in. And the palette was beautiful of the leaf colors. So it just made me feel like I wanted to be there, and if I just stretched my imagination, that I actually was. And I think that's a wonderful thing to communicate in a team.
Thank you all. I'm going to pass the mic briefly to our grand fearless organizer. She's right there.
Just one last word. Dave is handing out the programs, and these are the real programs that have the winners on. We kept them a secret. So Nancy has some at the door we're meeting out, and Dave is passing them around. So please do take one. And thank you all very much for coming. It's a great job.